Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Friday, May 24th, 2019, and today we're going to be talking about Joe Biden's numbers dipping in the 2020 race for the Democratic nomination on a national level. So, first things first, Joe Biden, of course, announced his campaign around April 26th, April 27th, and since then, his numbers have definitely got a lot higher than they've ever been in the race for the 2020 Democratic nomination. But that doesn't mean to say that he hasn't dropped support since he originally announced. Once he announced, he reached an extremely high peak, and since then he's been consistently dropping as the weeks go on. He's still at a higher point than any time he was before he announced his campaign, which isn't necessarily the worst thing, just as numbers have dropped around 6% nationwide, which can be a warning sign for the former vice president. As of right now, he leads nationwide by 17%, and not to take away from him, that's an amazing lead for someone that is entering a race with 22 other candidates. However, it doesn't mean much if you consistently drop every single poll coming out, but again, I don't expect that to continue, which is why we're analyzing it right now before it eventually plateaus off. Now, looking at someone like Joe Biden, he's running against very famous candidates like Bernie Sanders, Beto O'Rourke, Kamala Harris, Senator Elizabeth Warren. I don't know why I didn't put Senator in front of those other names. It was not intentional. It's just a slip in my mind. But looking at a number of these candidates, most of them are senators, former governors, former representatives, or current governors. Who knows? I know. But looking at these candidates, there are a lot of top names out here. The only one that really wasn't known before this race by almost anyone would probably be people like Andrew Yang, and Pete Buttigieg. Other than that, most of these other candidates are pretty well known nationwide, or at least within the Democratic Party, and there's no real reason as to why they should be polling this low, except for the fact that Biden and Sanders are both in this race. As of right now, there are third and fourth and fifth place candidates that do have a real shot at winning, actually winning second or third in the nomination. None of these candidates really have a real shot at winning the full-on nomination unless something drastically changes, but those candidates are Warren, Harris, and Pete Buttigieg in third, fourth, and fifth place respectively. Warren is peaking at around nearing, above 10%. The only other candidate to go above 10% was Kamala Harris. She's now in fourth place at 8%, and Pete Buttigieg is at 6.2%. Again, if you don't know who Pete Buttigieg is, he's a mayor from, I believe, South Bend, Indiana, but that's pretty much it. Looking at Joe Biden as of right now, the lowest lead nationwide is from Emerson. Emerson is not too well respected in terms of the polling industries, and it only shows Biden leading by 8%. And if you look before, they showed Sanders leading by 5% in the most recent Emerson poll taken before that one. So that is definitely bringing Biden's numbers down, but the average is still around 18 to 20%. That's the range, a 2% range besides the Emerson poll. So he still should be around a 18-19% lead nationwide. That's not the same lead that he held on May 10th, 2019 at his peak when he led by 26.8% nationwide. Now it's gone down almost 10 points, down to a 17-point lead nationwide. So there's a lot of questions as to why this might occur. Number one, his bounce is not going to last forever. If you look at people like Hillary Clinton, sure, I can see the argument as to after she announced her numbers went down, but that's also because Bernie Sanders was more well known. This poll, all these polls have always included Joe Biden because everyone knew and understood that he was probably going to run. He did not announce until April, but he was in these polling questions since December of 2018, okay? And even then, he's led. There's not been a single time where the average shows any other candidate above him. And if we're looking, Sanders got close to him, and then all of a sudden the announcement happened. So the day of the announcement, Biden led by 6.3%. A 2 weeks after the announcement, Biden led by 26.8%, and now it's down to a 17-point lead. But Sanders' numbers didn't really move up 10% from where they were before. They were at 15%, and now they're at 18%, a 4% difference when Biden has lost 9% nationwide. So, again, where is the other support coming from? Well, when Biden announced, Warren, Harris, and Buttigieg all lost a pretty good amount of voters. Beto O'Rourke went down, and he's now in sixth place at 3.7% when he peaked at 9.5%. Rounding up to 10% nationwide. Sure, Beto O'Rourke is well known, but the fact that he's losing to a former no-name mayor and now has knocked support down, where do these voters go? If they're not going to Biden and Biden is losing 9% of voters nationwide, where else? If not to Sanders, sure, he increased by 4, but 5% is still out. Well, we can look at candidates like Elizabeth Warren, who suddenly got a little bit of a boost, a 1.4% boost, but that's still a lot because it puts her up to around double digits. If you look at someone like Kamala Harris before, she was around 7.2%, and it's been a 0.8% increase. Though these increases may not be that big and that noticeable, they definitely did happen, and they do add up to that 9% loss for someone like Joe Biden. And again, things do change nationwide. Biden started campaigning. That could have affected him. Donald Trump has definitely started attacking a number of these candidates a lot more. Things like that can change the whole way that the news covers Joe Biden, things like that. A lot of these things could change, with the whole scandal going on with Joe Biden that has pretty much washed over. That usually only lasts about 24 to 36 hours on the news cycle. But again, things like that definitely can impact Joe Biden's candidacy. Now, he's probably going to do very well in this nomination race if he is not to win it. He's probably going to get second or third if he is to lose. But as of right now, he is the favorite to win the 2020 Democratic nom. And that makes sense. Joe Biden is an extremely well-known figure, as is Bernie Sanders, but he's also an establishment Democrat. A lot of people are failing to realize that the majority of the Democratic Party is not progressive. They still hold a lot of centrist ideals and still support candidates like Joe Biden, as they did Hillary Clinton in 2016. Though the more, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, louder ones of the Democratic Party are speaking out and they are progressive, like the Green New Deal or things like that do represent the newer phase of the Democratic Party, which is something we'll likely see in the next 10 years. That's not exactly the majority part of the Democratic Party. If you're looking at the Deep South, that is going to be an excessive win, a very strong win for Joe Biden in 2020. Whereas some places in the Northeast may be more in favor of Bernie Sanders. Sure, that could be a region issue, but if we're looking at the way that they supported the candidates in the past, typically they support either minority candidates or establishment Democrats, and it makes sense. These are areas that haven't really seen a true progressive type candidate, and Bernie Sanders was the first one in 2016. His name wasn't really known then, but even now, Joe Biden is so closely tied to the Obama administration that a lot of those voters still don't care. Even though the progressive policies may suit them better according to some, they still are going to vote for people like Joe Biden. And again, you can go back to this in a year and a half when maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, on Super Tuesday when all these numbers come in. But actually, that probably would happen in less than a year from now, which is really interesting, probably around March, where a number of these southern states come in, and let's say they go to Bernie Sanders, then boom. I guess I'm wrong right now. But as of right now, it looks like a number of these early voting states and southern states are going to go to Joe Biden. In fact, if you look at the most recent Morning Consult poll, Biden leads by more amongst early voting states, which builds up momentum than he does nationwide. So around 35 to 40% amongst early voting states, around 20% nationwide. But if we're looking at Joe Biden's numbers dropping, well, he has this all set out for him. I mean, he's leading in early voting states by more than he did before he announced. So why are his numbers dropping now? Well, again, I've pretty much outlined all the reasons as to why. There are a couple of things with his name circulating in the news a lot more often. But if we're looking around, it doesn't seem like Sanders is number one, berailing him excessively. If we're looking at a number of other candidates, sure, there are quarrels especially between Warren and Biden at times, but it's not too noticeable. A lot of these numbers have stayed the same, just a lot of them have inched up, by 1.2%, which may not seem like a lot, but when you're getting that to 5-6 candidates, Biden's numbers are dropping. He's still at 35% nationwide. Amongst 23 candidates, that's absolutely insane for one candidate to have over a third of the entire vote. When there's that many candidates, it really should be dispersed a lot more. If we're looking at Bernie Sanders, he's also taking around 20% more, 20% of the vote nationwide as well. So those are the top two candidates getting around 50% of all the vote, and then the rest of it split amongst them. And then you take the third, fourth, and fifth place candidates, and then you have about, 30% left of the vote to spread across, I believe, 18 more candidates. So that's absolutely insane. But as of right now, Biden leads. You can't really take that away from him. Just there are some factors as to why his numbers aren't necessarily dropping. If you look at some of the old polling data, he was around the 40% marks, 46, 44, or 40, 38, 39. Now he's around 33, 33, 39, 35, 35, and 33. So you can pretty much see how there's a little bit of a drop, but also if you look at someone like Bernie Sanders, he's not necessarily increasing either. It's around the same as where it was before. But people like Warren, Harris, and Buttigieg are seeing just a little bit of a bump. Or Buttigieg has actually gone down, but there are other candidates across the rest of the other 18 candidates that have bumped up just a tad bit, but overall it just adds up and deducts from Biden's numbers as he was the top candidate. Keep in mind, at one point, he was taking alone 41.4% of the vote amongst all the candidates nationwide. So again, that's something that also needs to be recognized. But as of right now, I do think Biden's numbers are probably going to rebound, as a number of these 23 candidates just drop off the race, like Tim Ryan, Kirsten Gillibrand, Tulsi Gabbard, Andrew Yang, Julian Castro, Amy Klobuchar, Cory Booker, Beto O'Rourke. It'll probably leave these top 5. Not these exact top 5, but the top 5 are probably going to continue on, and then it's going to go down to a 4-person race, 3-person race, and end up most likely with a 2-person race by the time the convention rolls around. I do not know as of right now if I think that Biden or Sanders will win the plurality of delegates. It may not be either. It may be Sanders. It may be Biden. Who knows as of right now? But it looks like Biden has a pretty strong lead nationwide. Just his numbers may be wavering just a little bit because his announcement bump is overall over, and a couple of things have impacted him that I've covered in this video. So that wraps up today's video. Thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.